obviously they're larger. We have a few more acres, 940 versus 890 million acres in farming, and less than 1 million people who are gainfully employed in farming in the United States. Yep. No, this is everybody. This is the whole U.S. Maps. All right, let's look at some maps. So this is 1850 to 1860, and it's showing you the change from 1850 to 1860. So this is the decade before the Civil War, and here's the big area. So in the decade before the Civil War, we've got this big migration. That's the migration pattern that I was showing you when you're looking at that table with the why are the subregions having different growth rates than the region as a whole. And you can see the huge increase in land that's being farmed here in Illinois. You can't hardly see Illinois, eastern Iowa, and northern Missouri, as well as other places. Further expansion, here's the top one is 1860. And so each dot here is showing you 25,000 acres of improved land in 1860, and the bottom is 1900. So that's huge, right? From 1860, 40 years to 1900. This has not changed now. This is just showing you what land is improved. Huge increase over that period. Yep.
In the biggest line of the diagram in the chart,
yep.
Is it pretty easy to mark the spread west, or is like obviously they move a lot to the north before?
There's not a lot of migration south to north in this period. So the question is about, there's a lot in the question. Yeah, so, no, it's okay. Part of the question was presumption about migrate north. South to north migration is later. So there's a little bit of south to north migration of the black population in the 1920s, and then a lot associated with World War II. The northern farms are, remember that chart I showed you the day that was a Rachel Maddow chart of ancestry? All the Germans? It's all that internet, it's all that migration coming from Germany, Sweden, Norway, that sort of area. Yep. Okay. So, and in fact, if I went back to that chart, this area where it shows all this land in 1900, almost all of that's going to be that light blue, which was the Germans. And remember that was a plurality, it wasn't a majority. It was what's the number one answer, not what's the 51% answer. Okay, so we get this huge expansion in farmland. This is why when you fly from here to there, right, you fly over the middle of the country, and all you see for, you fly out here, and you've got 10 minutes worth of people, and then you get into the mountains, and then you see land, and then there's people again. That's basically an SFO JFK flight. So there you go. What's this? How come this area has no dots in it? What is that? Yeah, Indian territory. So that's Indian reservations. That's, remember the Trail of Tears? The movement of the Indian population to Oklahoma. Okay, wheat. I brought in pictures so you can see what these crops look like. So this is wheat. The wheat crop is grown in fields. Notice there's no rows of, that's going to be a contrast with corn in just a few minutes. So you get huge plots of land where they're growing wheat. The wheat is being grown, what are these maps? My glasses back on. 1859 is the top one, 1889 is the bottom. This is showing you where the wheat is being grown. So wheat, before the Civil War, we get a little bit of wheat here, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. We get some wheat here in the area that's now, what's Maryland and Amish country. And then by 1889, look, here's California, Central Valley. There we are. And wheat being grown here, northern wheat, the Dakotas into Minnesota, along the borders here, and here's our wheat crop. So we've got something of a wheat belt, not much. Here, about 30% of the wheat crop is being exported. Most of it's being milled at mills that are nearby and turned into grain that's being used for foodstuffs. Corn, here you go, that's corn. Corn grows on stalks. Corn is a row crop, so notice the rows, row, which means that if you're going to have a machine that goes along these rows, you either have to have your rows well apart so that your machine can fit in between the rows, or you have to have a machine that's up really high so that the machine can go over the rows, the row crop. With a wheat crop, you don't have to worry about how far apart things are planted. Okay, corn. Where's the corn grown? Here at the top again is 1859. The bottom is 1889. Look at the huge expansion of corn. Corn is a feed crop, so it's used to feed the horses and the pigs and all those farm animals, as well as being consumable. Everything you can imagine is made with corn. I was actually looking it up this morning because one of my cousins said she just got diagnosed as allergic to corn. It's like, oh my God, you have to live in a bubble. I mean, diapers are made from corn starch. Rubber tires are made from corn. Most makeup has corn in it. What else was on this list that I was sending her? Just about everything you can imagine. Let alone food, right? I mean, think about all the food that we eat that's based on corn. Chips, right? Tortillas, enchiladas, all that good stuff. Corn on the cob, and on and on and on. Candy corn? No, not that. Actually, yes, candy corn. Corn syrup, that's right. And yes, and are those hideous little things for Easter? What are those? Cadbury eggs? No, they're not the hideous ones. The hideous ones are those little puffy things. Oh. Yeah, Peeps. Some people love Peeps. If people didn't love Peeps, they wouldn't be able to sell Peeps. So some Peeps love Peeps, and some of us... Well, okay, I have a picture of Peeps. Cotton. So there's cotton. We've already seen our pictures of cotton. Cotton's grown largely in the South. 2/3 of the cotton crop is exported. This is 1899 on the bottom, 1859 on the top. And so you can see the expansion of the cotton crop over the same period. In the North, the South had slaves during the antebellum period. The North did not. So there is scarce labor on the northern farms. We talked about the scarcity of labor when we were talking about fertility issues. I want to talk about it in a different context now. The scarcity of labor on the northern farms is going to lead to an incentive for capital development. That is for the development of agricultural implements where you can substitute capital for labor. You don't have the same incentive in the southern farms. In the southern cotton farms, where there is a large slave population, there's not a scarcity of labor. There's not the same economic incentive to develop in the antebellum period mechanized ways of picking cotton because there is plentiful labor in the South. And the absence of scarcity means the absence of an incentive to develop capital to substitute for labor. But in the North, there is scarce labor. And this labor leads to the development of capital. So we're going to talk about wheat primarily, but we'll also talk about corn. So the wheat crop, here's the wheat crop, and this is table 18, and right now I need mostly the left half of table 18. And you can see the number of hours it takes for a bushel, 100 bushels of wheat is 373 in 1800. That's going to drop dramatically by half in 1880. For the corn crop, there's also a drop from 1800 to 1880 in the numbers of hours that are required to harvest the corn crop. There's not very much, in fact, there's, I would say, no change in the amount of output per acre. So we're not getting changes over this period, 1800 to 1910. We're not getting changes in how fertile the land is or in how productive the land is in terms of the crops. We're getting 14, 15 bushels of wheat per acre. We're getting 25, 26 bushels of corn per acre. That's not changing. What's changing are the number of hours that it takes to harvest each of these things. Now, the important thing about the wheat crop is the wheat crop has a relatively small window when you can harvest the wheat. Some crops they are ready to harvest, and if you don't get to it in the next 4 days, you can still go out and harvest that crop, right? So when your apples are ready to pick off your apple tree, if you don't get to them this weekend, you can get to them next weekend. And unless the birds have come and eaten all your apples, or we have plums in our yard, unless the birds come and eat all the plums, there's actually, I have like about a 2.5 to 3 week window during which I can harvest the plums off of my tree once they get to be ripe. If you have a wheat crop, you have about 7 days from the time the wheat is ready to harvest until it's too late. And so there is a huge push to get the wheat out of the ground very quickly when the wheat is ready to be harvested. So here we go, pictures. First thing, plows. Plows are used to dig up the earth so you can plant the seeds. Initially, in the old days, plows were wooden. So that the key part of this plow is down here is the blade that's going to cut the furrows in the earth so that you can put the seeds in. And when you take a plow and take the plow through the furrows of the earth, what you want is you're holding onto this. There's a horse at the front that's pulling it. And you want the blade to go and cut into the dirt, and you want the dirt to fall off of the blade, because otherwise you're going to get stuck. All right, now, how many people have ever cooked a nice batch of brownies? Anybody ever had nice warm brownies? You take the brownies out of the oven, get a knife out of the drawer, pull the knife through the brownies, what happens? Stick to the knife, right? You get brownies all over the knife. If instead of taking the knife out of the drawer, if you get a plastic knife, you know what, you have for a picnic, get a plastic knife, pull the plastic knife through the brownies, what do you get? Perfect cut. Really. The brownies fall away from the plastic. They don't stick to the plastic. Plastic knives are to brownies as steel plows are to the earth. It's an SAT question, okay? So they start with wooden plows. That's not going to be very good because the dirt's really going to stick to the wooden plow. Then they go from wood down here to metal. The metal's heavy. The metal cuts more, right? You can get a sharp edge on the metal, but the dirt sticks to the metal like the brownie sticks to the knife. The steel plow, developed in 1850, that's sweet because the steel plow, the dirt doesn't stick to the steel. And so the steel plow holds an edge so it cuts through the earth. The dirt doesn't stick to it. It falls away. And so it's very efficient for getting the furrows in the land so you can plant the seeds. It's the same capital. So these improvements from wood to metal to steel, what are those changes in? Are those changes in K over L or changes in A? A, that's right, because we still got a plow. Plow is a plow is a plow, but some plows are better than others. Reapers. A reaper, oh man, when I was looking for pictures for reapers, you should see how many grim reapers I got. A reaper is what's used to gather the wheat. So this is a hand cradle. That's a picture of a hand cradle. So once the wheat is cut, then you have to go through and you have to pick up the wheat off the ground. So initially they have a hand cradle, and you walk through the field, and you use that hand cradle to scoop up the wheat. Then when we get our mechanical reapers, mechanical reapers are going to do the same thing that the hand cradle does, but it's going to be on a machine that's pulled behind a horse. So now we've got actually now more capital because this is going to be more expensive capital. And the horses are capital too for the farm because those are machines. Basically, they're pulling things. Reapers developed 1830s, really adopted in the 1850s. Then we get the thresher. The thresher separates the wheat from the stalk because you need to get the good stuff away from the bad stuff. Threshers are patented in 1837 and widely adopted in the 1850s. And this is showing you a thresher. Again, this is, I don't know if you can tell this. These horses are going around in a circle. So they're walking around and the machine here is separating the wheat from the stalk. It's threshing. Harvester. A harvester does two things at once. It reaps and it threshes. So it picks the wheat up and it separates the wheat from the stalk. It's developed 1858, but here you go. Look at that. Horsepower. 33 horse team. Now this picture's from 1902, but it's the best I can do. 33 horses pulling this thing. If you've got 33 horses pulling this piece of farm equipment, first off, 33 horses, that's a whole lot of capital. Second, can you pull something that wide over some land that's curvy? No. You gotta have relatively flat land in order to pull this wide machine with this 33 horse team over that land. And so the wheat is going, first off, the wheat's going to be grown more profitably in the plains states where if you've driven across it, right, you get into Nebraska and you set your cruise control for 84 and you get out a book, set the cruise control for 84, put the steering wheel against your knee, get out a book and you can drive across the state, right? Because there's nothing there. There are no hills, there's nothing. It's just flat from one end to the other. All right, the binder binds up the wheat. So here's the wheat's been reaped, and they've bound it up with little twine bindings. And then we get the combine, which is a combination. How about that, huh? The combine is a combination and does everything at once. I'm not going to do the YouTube because I don't have time. The link is there. You can watch it on your own. And notice once again the horsepower, right? Huge number of horses. Those horses eat corn and grain. They eat grain. They don't eat corn. Sorry. They don't eat corn. That was wrong. They eat grain. So you need to grow other grain. Sorry. I knew what I was going to do. The pigs eat the corn. Yeah. So you've got to grow grain for these horses to eat. You got to keep them fed. Sam. Because the combine does, there's the combine cuts, reaps, threshes, binds. Thank you. Does the whole thing. Yeah, next. How much of the wheat is damaged by the horses? This is the thing about it not being a row crop. You can't really tell from this, maybe you can, but the machine itself is off to the side of the horses. And so the horses are going along next to the crop that's being processed. Right, so they're going through the area that's already been cut and harvested. Yeah. So it's not pulled directly behind them, it's off to the side. Pretty sneaky, huh? Yeah. Okay, so what happens? The number of hours per acre falls. The number of hours per acre before the harvest falls in half. That part was important, right? That comes from the plowing and the planting. But that wasn't as important as trying to get some sort of savings on the hours at harvest where the crop can go bad really quickly. The hours per acre at harvest falls from 40 to 12. That's huge. That's a huge improvement in productivity. So the introduction of all of these types of machines are increasing productivity pretty markedly. So we've got our production function, same one I had a minute ago, A times F of K over L, T over L, L over P. This introduction, the types of capital, we've got both increases in capital labor ratio, so there's much more use of machines per worker, and we've also got increases in A with the improvements in the capital itself. So we have more machines, increase in K over L, and better machines, increases in A, both of which lead to increases in output per person in farming. Some numbers and some pictures. This chart, which I think is from your textbook, shows you total factor productivity in agriculture. So total factor productivity, that's the A in our production function. So this is work that's been done to mathematically tease out what's the value of A, and you can see the increases in total factor productivity. Now, we've been talking primarily about this period here, up through about 1900, and there are certainly increases in total factor productivity in this period from the Civil War until around 1900. But looky here at these huge increases here in the 1930s and 1940s. That's coming about from two things. One is, here's my picture. One is the increase in agricultural implements. So the use of mechanization is important in the period that we were just talking about, which is this basically pre-1900 period. So you can sort of pick out, it's swamped by what happens later. You can sort of pick out that both the nominal, which is the red line, and the real, which is the green line, are increasing over this period, so that we have increased mechanization, the value of farm implements in the United States as a whole. But what happens over the latter half of the 19th century is swamped by what happens here in the 30s and the 40s. So a huge increase in the mechanization of agriculture in the 1930s and the 1940s. That's going to come much later and is a reflection of opportunity cost. It's a reflection of available financing. I don't want to talk about it right now. I just want to show you that it's there. Then the second piece is, and then the second thing that's contributing to this rise in agricultural productivity in the post-1920, 1930 period, chemicals. So the chemical revolution, the use of fertilizer and so on, beyond simply what the cow and the horse leave and the pig leave for you to use, really takes off in the 30s and 20s and 30s and 40s. And so that's the agricultural revolution in farming. So the total factor productivity gains after World War I are huge by comparison with what we're talking about. We still have some pretty substantial gains in productivity in the period that we're focused on right now. So right now we're focused on the period from about 1850 or so to 1900. We've got some important gains in agricultural productivity from, as we've said, the introduction of machinery. That pales by comparison with what happens later, but we're not going to talk about what happens later today. I just want you to know. Sam? The drop there? Don't know. So why does total factor productivity decline right there? I don't know. I'd have to dig out the article. Do you have any idea? No, we don't know. I don't think so, because I think it's not. I don't think it's annual data. I think it's decadal data. So yeah, 5-year data. So I don't know. We don't know. Daniel might know. I don't know. Okay. Why mechanize? 2 reasons to mechanize. Well, I'll just have to say it real quickly. 2 reasons to mechanize. One thing that you may have seen in Econ 1, not when I taught it though, sorry, my bad, is that in equilibrium, the marginal product of labor relative to the price of labor, so MP is the additional output per worker, in equilibrium ought to equal the marginal product of capital to the price of capital. So the incentive for mechanizing has to do with the scarcity of labor, which drives up the price of labor. So labor scarcity means that there's an increase in the price of labor, and that creates the incentive for increasing the marginal product of the labor, of increasing the marginal product of the workers by giving them more capital to work with. So that's one reason. The second reason is competition. And the idea of competition is we've got some piece of land here. There's a piece of land. Oh, I should make it the north. There's a piece of land, perfect square. There's a piece of land. We've got a piece of land, and next door to it is another piece of land. So here's another piece of land. And the farmer on this other piece of land has a machine. If you don't mechanize your land, the farmer next to you knows that he could buy your land from you, use his machine, and make more profit off of your land than you're making by not mechanizing. Which means that the farmer next door to you is going to offer you a good price for your land, because the farmer has the tractors or the reapers or the sowers or whatever the mechanization is, has the machines, and can get some good profit off of your land. So the farmer next to you is going to offer you a good price for your land. You're either going to sell your land to the farmer next to you, and therefore your land will be mechanized, because that's the whole reason he offers you a good price, or you'll say, I don't want to sell my land. I'm going to get me one of those tractors, and that's going to increase my productivity and increase my profit on this land, and that way your land is mechanized as well. So whether each individual farmer buys a tractor or whatever the machine is that we're talking about, or whether the farmer sells to somebody who has the machines, the existence of the farm machines increases the profit even of the land that's not yet mechanized, which creates an incentive for that land to ultimately become mechanized. Oh, I want to show you this picture. Let me show you this picture just because I want to tell you. You don't have to know it, but let me show it to you. This farmer's terms of trade looks at the prices of agricultural goods divided by the prices of non-agricultural goods. And a lot of people, they look at this picture and they say, well, look, the overall trend here is an upward trend over time. But the farmers who are living in 1890 and 1900, they only know what they know. They don't know what's coming in the future. They know what they're living through. And the farmers who've been living through the postbellum period, the blue line shows the trend. The overall trend for those farmers is a decrease in the terms of trade. That is, the price of their goods is not doing well relative to the price of other things. Why? Because they've increased the quantity of those goods through the mechanization and the expansion of land. And so there's been a huge increase in supply. And so by 1890 and 1900, we have some really unhappy farmers, which I don't remember if I have a chance to talk about it in the next part of the course or not, but I might. Who knows? See you Thursday at office hours now till 5.